I'm very exhausted, but I will go through Anime Boston. So the last time I was in Boston was for PAX East, which was a couple of years ago for me. Originally, I flew there, but this time around, I wound up driving there, which was a bit of an excursion, because from where I live to the place that I was going to in Boston, easily over 700 miles. The entire trip in total was slated to take 11 and a half hours. But I load up my car, I hit the road, I am on the highway for a grand total of 2 minutes before traffic slows to basically a stop because of a car accident. And the sad thing is, it wasn't even a car accident on my side of the road. It was a car accident going westbound. I was on the eastbound side. But there was so much debris and shrapnel that flew over the concrete divider and went into our lanes that, yeah, they had to get emergency crews over to clear some of it off. And unfortunately, this would be part of a recurring pattern, because but when all was said and done, I saw a total of 5 car accidents on the way to Boston. There was a half-hour period where I drove through like a little part of West Virginia. Sure enough, car accident there that stopped everything. New England people can't drive. You know, the last one was in the Boston area. Now, there is one thing I will say about the drive over there. The drive there is at least interesting. Like, you do end up going the long way across Pennsylvania, but when you do that, you end up seeing like the Allegheny Mountains, the Pocono Mountains, a bunch of rock faces, overlooks on valleys, a shit ton of fog. So it's not really a boring drive. And sure enough, I do eventually find the hotel where I'm going to be staying. And as I'm pulling in, almost get into a car accident with someone. Thanks, Boston drivers. After I get there, that I realize, there's not like specific parking for the hotel. There's a big ass public garage that attaches to like the hotel and a shopping center and some other stuff. And it's also very Labyrinth-like in its design, and the spots were kind of small. Like, there were some that I looked at and I thought, okay, I'm just driving like a little sedan and I'm going to have some issues going for that. Meanwhile, there were people trying to park like big ass trucks, and there's no physical way they're fitting in these parking spaces. So they end up like blocking parts of the lanes going through the parking garage, making it even harder to navigate. But I do eventually find a place to park, and because of the labyrinthine design, I could not tell how to get back to where the hotel was. And I wasn't alone, because I see these other people, clearly dressed for the convention, who are like wandering around the parking garage, trying to figure out where in the hell everything is. I eventually find out how to get into the hotel, which involves going through the valet door, where you have to like push a button for security to let you in. And I meet up with Casey and Kira, and I'm exhausted. And they reveal that there was a bit of a mix-up with giving them the room for the convention. They asked for a room that had 2 beds. This room did not have 2 beds. It had 1. The room itself is okay. It just only had 1 bed. Regardless, though, we say, fuck it, let's just get everything up to the room first. One thing I did bring was a bunch of snacks, because I went to an Asian grocer before hitting the road for the convention. So I had like a bunch of those Meiji Panda cookie things with the fillings that are like chocolate or vanilla. These were all chocolate. And I also, because of the whole choke on a baguette running joke with Casey, I found baguette chips. They're like sliced up pieces of baguettes, and they're toasted, and they have like some kind of flavor to them. I brought ones that had black pepper, and there were garlic baguette chips. I wanted to bring, there's like one that's got like a bit of honey on it, but I couldn't find those. Those were out of stock when I went to the grocer the last time. Because there's only one bed, that presents a bit of a problem. Because there are 3 of us in this room. Obviously, I am not going to lay claim to the bed. So I start looking at what else is in the room that could be a potential sleep space. And I see this big-ass chair. And it has, like, a footrest thing. And I start thinking, maybe. Over the course of the entire weekend, I built 3 different versions of the con bed. Version 1, which was like the prototype, was just the chair and the footrest positioned long ways so I could kind of stretch out my feet. And then I just used my jacket as a blanket. Version 2, again, chair plus footrest. And there was also this other piece of furniture in the room which we thought was attached to the wall, but it actually wasn't. It was this like maybe 2 foot high, not quite a table that had this like faux leather covering over the top of it. I take that, I slide it to the other side of the room and put it beyond the footrest. So now I can fully stretch out my legs when I sleep. I'm still using my jacket as a blanket. Version 3 of the bed, and the one that I ultimately settled upon for the whole weekend, still had the chair. The footrest was swapped out because there's like no give to it, and basically I'd be resting my ass on it. I swapped that out, and instead I wheel in the desk chair, which does have a bit of padding to it, and it's one of those hydraulic chairs, so there's a bit of give to it. I adjust the hydraulic so it's at the same height as the chair, and then make that the middle piece of my fucked up convention bed. And that's the thing that I got like the best sleep on. That leads into Friday, and the weather was not great in Boston to start out with. It was kind of cold, it was kind of rainy. It did gradually get better as the weekend went on, to the point that by the end of it, people weren't looking at me weird for walking around in shorts and a t-shirt all the time. So Casey and Kira got their badges when they initially arrived, and that included the badge that I would have for helping Casey with stuff at the convention. There was a slight problem with it though. Casey's badge said Casey Mongillo. My badge said Casey Mongillo. You can see the problem. And the thing is, their badges weren't like everybody else's badges where there's like a pouch with a card that you slip in. Theirs were completely sealed. So you could not take the card out of it to like write anything on it. I said, hold on, I got this. Because I always bring like a few Sharpies with me just in case. So I take out a black Sharpie and I put an apostrophe S after Mongillo and handler underneath it. We start heading down to the convention area, and this took place at the Heinz Center, which was kind of a unique setup that I hadn't really encountered much before. So there's the Sheraton Hotel, and then there's this escalator you go up, and you walk down a bit of a hallway, and it attaches to this indoor shopping center mall type area. There's lots of shops, lots of places to stop and get a bite to eat. First of all, there's a mandatory thing that all the guests have to go to for opening ceremonies. So we all start making our way over there. And we're being led to where the opening ceremonies are by a couple of liaisons who work with the convention. We accidentally, I can't remember if we were going in an exit or exiting an entrance. But like one of the Anime Boston staffers there is like, no, you have to go around. Jesus fucking Christ. That's a direct quote, by the way. Jesus fucking Christ. We are like 30 minutes into the convention, and this one staffer has already had enough. So like I said, they mandated that guests be at the opening ceremonies. And it became apparent why. They were going to have all of the guests get on stage as they were introduced and like say a few words for the convention. So we're led backstage. I didn't really know much about Anime Boston, like how big it was, how long it had been around. It's been around for, I think like a decade and a half at this point. And they like have a fairly sized production for this. Like, for example, they have their own in-house team for producing videos and graphics for the convention. So even though opening ceremonies hadn't started yet, they already had a ton of like splash screens and motion graphics and like funny videos that they were playing in the meantime. They had their own choose your own adventure thing set up on the video screens that people could follow along with. And of course, as I'm walking through this, I'm like keeping my arms stiff at my sides, watching my steps carefully because I don't want to accidentally like bump into some of the equipment as I'm trying to pass through. All that video production carried over to the guest introductions because when they introduced the guests, they would play a custom-made video that showed their name, their headshot, a list of some of the things they voice acted in, and then they would play clips from the things that they were in. And of course, when they did Casey's, they played the Neon Genesis Evangelion theme. Casey and Kira do their intros, and they say, you don't have to stay for the whole thing. Once you're done, you can go off and do whatever. We took that to mean, all right, let's go get something to eat. And that place was Shake Shack. Of course, because the convention is going on at this time. There are a bunch of people there, and the Shake Shack happens to be very close to the place where people walk into the convention center proper. So naturally, it generates a line. It's going out the Shake Shack, but it's moving at a decent pace, so we go, you know what, sure, we'll just wait. We get in line, and there's a small group of cosplayers in front of us. And they go, excuse me, can you take our photo? Or something like that. I can't remember the exact phrasing. And Casey goes, sure, and holds out their phone, because they assume that they wanted Casey to take a photo of them. And then they go, no, we want a photo with you. Casey's a little taken back at first, but says, yeah, sure. So yeah, we go to Shake Shack. We get shakes. I get the bacon and cheese fries, and that pretty much sets me for most of the day. We all head back to the autograph area, which there's like an autograph section, a tabletop section, and a video gaming section, all kind of in the same enclosed area. Michelle Ruff is there, Alejandro Saab is there, Christina V is there. Christina V was actually right next to Casey's table, and then Kira's was on the other side. Greg Ayers was there, and we'll get back to Greg later on. And the head of the autograph area comes over to us and just gives the usual spiel like, is there anything you need? We'll have liaisons around. You like need water or a replacement for a paint marker or a Sharpie or something. Just ask one of them, they'll get it to you. And then they hand us these pieces of paper, and it's got these like grids on it and like labels for each grid that say like autograph 8x10/personal, autograph large print, autograph Funko. And I was taken a little aback by this, but they wanted us to like keep a proper log of every kind of like autograph that was being purchased. They also wanted you to keep track of selfies. Whew, man. Let's just say no one was worried about hitting a guarantee for this con. It was just a constant flow of people on the first day. Like, I'm pretty sure the guarantee was made just on the first day of the convention alone. So because of the constant flow of people, we just had to keep autographs going all the time and not getting much of a break. And then once the autographs were done, we had a panel that Casey and Kira were putting on about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Because both of them voiced key characters in Stone Ocean, which was the most recent animated thing. But this was relatively late in the day, so Kira initially thought that because of the time of day, it would kind of be like a deader panel. They'd maybe have like half a room of people. They get there are no seats left. Absolutely none. So they're like, oh shit, and they go starting to set up their panel, and I'm sitting there going, fuck, where do I sit? Because they don't allow people to like stand in the back of the room because fire hazard, capacity laws, etc., etc. So remember the Jesus fucking Christ staffer from the beginning? We did encounter another high-strung staffer like that, but in this panel room, there's a guy up front who's running the audio and video, and he's got his like own little desk with a setup. And he comes up to me and he said, were you planning to stick around for the panel? And I said, well, yeah, but it doesn't look like there's anywhere to sit. And he goes, well, I can't have you stand at the back because that's going to be a fire hazard. So why don't you just come up to the desk and take a seat with me? I'm both relieved that there's somewhere to sit for the panel, but also there's that little part of me that's terrified because he has 2 seats at his desk. Well, table, I should say. He's like right in front of this like huge switchboard running the sound and the video, and I'm next to him, also directly in front of audio video equipment. And every once in a while he'll like reach over in front of me. So the entire panel, I'm just paranoid about potentially like hitting something or even just being close enough to it that my tech incompetence aura will cause something to short out. So I'm sitting with my back to the chair, my arms folded in at my sides, just not doing anything for the length of the panel. But the panel does go over well. There were actually some really nice looking JoJo cosplayers there. Like, I'm not familiar with the series, but the costumes themselves look good. And there was one guy there who, because I'm not familiar with the series, I thought he was cosplaying Indiana Jones. But he was actually, I guess, an old version of Jotaro. But it was impossible to miss this guy because he was easily, and I'm probably underestimating, easily 6.5 feet tall. Especially at one point when a bunch of the people in JoJo cosplay like all lined up and started doing poses. And this guy is like 2 heads taller than everybody else. But at that panel, once it was done and everybody was starting to leave and there were like a couple stragglers hanging around, I noticed there's a woman there. And they're clearly not in JoJo cosplay. I see like boots with fur on them, a chest piece with fur on it, and a skull on their head. And I'm going, oh my god, I think I know what that is. But I don't want to be that guy who gets it wrong. And sure enough, it comes up in casual conversation when one person asks her, oh, by the way, what's your costume from? It looks really cool. And they go, oh, this is the bone armor from Monster Hunter World. And I just belt out, I knew it! Probably too loud. But I did compliment them on the cosplay. It looked really good. That just reminds me of the Monster Hunter stuff that I want to try and do at some point. Once all of that is done, we realize we haven't really eaten anything. It was a late panel, so a bunch of the food places were either already closed or shutting down. So we say, well, all of us have guest badges, why don't we go to the green room and see if we can get something to eat there? And the green room is conveniently one floor above where Casey and Kira's room is. And there's a doorbell to it, which I'm not used to seeing that in a hotel, but there was a doorbell to the green room. We get let inside. I need to back up a moment to say that this convention has a distinction between types of guests. They have a list of North American guests, and they also have a list of Japanese guests. I can't remember a lot of them, but they invited some of the voice actors for the Japanese versions of certain anime. Lady Beard was there, although his current act is Baby Beard, and Lotus Juice was also there. But I'm telling you all that to let you know that we walk into the green room, and there's this open area where there's 4 couches all arranged in like an open-ended square, and they're facing each other. And all the Japanese guests are there. They're all talking to each other. And the food for the green room is all right behind them. So there is no way for us to get to this food without walking right through the middle of all of their conversations. So we just do that thing where we, like, even though crouching down doesn't help at all because everyone's sitting down anyway, we'll like crouch down, do that quick little shuffle, and we're like, sorry, and go to the food. Casey and I resist the urge to say like, gomenasai. But we do manage to get something to eat from the green room. We head back to the room. We all fall asleep. I'm on version 2 of Con Bed, which I still have to like wake up and stretch because, I mean, it's better than the initial prototype, but still not quite there yet. As I wake up, I look outside at the other rooms in this tall building across from us. I don't know if it was another hotel or an apartment complex or what, but certain people had things on the windows. The ones that stood out to me were, there was a person who put "I heart you" in like some kind of post-its or something. Another person put a heart on their window. And then there's another person who had like those strings of letters that say "Happy Birthday." We couldn't see the entire thing. We just saw like "stay," but it was pretty obvious what it was supposed to be. Anyway, for this day, rather than having one long autograph signing block, everyone had their signing split into 2 different time blocks with a break in between that would offer more than enough time to go and get lunch somewhere. For the first half of the signing block, it was basically Angel Devil Day. Like, if I remember correctly, I think the very first person in Casey's line was an Angel Devil cosplayer, and Casey voiced Angel Devil in Chainsaw Man. And then there were like, I think 5 or 6 more Angel Devils that showed up throughout the day. But then there was Mimic Man. So Casey also voices this character called Chilchuck Timms, who is a halfling in a show called Dungeon Meshi, aka Delicious in Dungeon. This halfling character can like disarm traps and open chests, and also has frequent run-ins with mimics that end poorly for him. So this dude is in line. He has this giant treasure chest. It's partially open, it's got sharp teeth, and the legs and lower torso of a body are sticking out of it. They put it up on the table and say, "Will you sign my mimic?" And sure enough, Casey does sign it, because, I mean, how can you not? It was also while we were doing this first signing block that the convention hit capacity. Oh, I can't remember the exact number. I think it was like 31,000 people in attendance. It was over 30,000, but it was like low 30s. So we eventually do finish the first signing block, and we go, all right, we're going to go get something to eat. Kira, who had already scouted out this area a little before, / had people in town who knew places to eat, took us to, it's within that shopping center area. And it's not just a restaurant. It's not just like a corner store or something. It's this huge, like, open indoor market area that's all Italian, and it's called Italy. There was, like, an indoor restaurant in there called La Pizza and La Pasta, which, of course, reminded me of famous Punch-Out character Pizza Pasta. So we checked what the wait time for it was going to be. And the wait was so long that by the time we got seated, the next autograph session would start. So that was off the books. So instead, we went to this other restaurant called Earl's. It was kind of odd, this place, because there were some places in it that were like, yeah, cool, I could eat here. And then there were a couple other areas in it that also radiated that you don't belong here kind of energy. We didn't eat in those spaces. We were in, like, this upper level space, which is usually like open air dining, but it was all enclosed because it was way too cold. So we all get seated, and the person who seats us, she asks, are you in town for the convention? And we're like, yeah, we were actually invited to, I forget how Kira phrased it. Participate in it? Or something like that? And the person asks, like, oh, really? Well, how are you taking part in it? And then they explain, like, Casey, Kira, they are voice actors for various animated TV shows and video games. And the server starts nerding out, and they go like, oh, really? Like what? And Casey's like, I did a voice for Evangelion. And they're like, oh, what? This person seating us just starts nerding out over all the different things that they're talking about. And it's clear that they know what these things are. They're not just trying to, like, gas them up or anything like that. But it was kind of funny seeing this person seating us who's in, like, basically business casual attire, just going, oh my god, I love Jill Chuck. So, we get seated at Earl's, and it is immediately apparent that they are under a lot of stress trying to serve as many people coming in for the convention and just for casual dining as they possibly can. Also, as this is going on, Kira has another friend who joins us for the meal. And this person looks at their water glass and goes, is that lipstick? Sure enough, there's a big lipstick mark on part of the glass. So we call one of the waiters over and say, like, there's lipstick on this water glass. And they go, oh shit, sorry. I'll get you another one from a different table. So what this person does is they take that glass, they go over to a table that hasn't had anyone sit at it yet, grab the water glass from there, they kind of put it down near the edge of the table and swap that one in with ours. This will be important later. So we start ordering our food. I am again getting something relatively inexpensive, but this place did have, like, burgers and stuff like that, so I was fine. And we're just having casual conversation. At one point, someone needs to get, like, another glass for a drink. It eventually gets served in another glass. They're about to drink from it, and they realize, is this the same lipstick glass from before? And sure enough, it was. They grabbed that same glass from that other table and tried using it again. But once the whole water glass fiasco was properly taken care of, the food was nice. So we have our lunch. We go back for the second block of autograph signings. And I need to note that at this convention, Casey did have, like, a print for sale of Chilchuck from Dungeon Meshi. They sold out of those on Saturday. And that means they'll have to bring quite a few more of them the next time they do one of these signings. So the second block winds down. Casey and Kira have to go for a tech setup for the next panel that they're doing. Because the next panel that they're doing is basically people come to the panel, and play against Casey and Kira in Smash Bros. Ultimate. Because Casey doesn't really play Smash at all, but Kira still plays Smash, and once upon a time, Kira used to play Smash Bros. Competitively. So even though it's been a bit since they've done that, they're still really familiar with the game. Now, I wasn't planning to do anything for this panel whatsoever, but I'm kind of like standing off to the side, trying to make sure I'm not getting any of the tech people's way. They're like doing some test fights. They slowly start like letting people in. It's like 20 minutes before the panel actually starts. And then Casey's like, do you want to try a couple matches against Kira? And I'm like, I'm not going to win, but okay. I do one with Wii Fit Trainer, because stretch those shoulders. Of course, I was doing that more of the time than actual fighting. It's been a really long time since I actually attempted to play Smash. I did play it on WonRull's stream, but for the most part, I was just fucking around and not really doing anything. I do another fight with Kira, where I'm playing as Banjo-Kazooie, a character I have never, ever played as. So I didn't know what any of his moves are. I'm just trying to BS my way through the fight, and the timer runs out, and somehow Kira and I still have the same amount of stock. So it goes to sudden death. And by sheer fucking dumb luck, I land a hit on Kira and win the match. That is the only time I will ever beat Kira in Smash. The funny part is, after that happens, there's this guy who comes up from the crowd, and he gives us his card. I can't remember what it was he said that he did, but he was very complimentary of us, and said that we were all like pretty good Smash players, and I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing. So for this setup, there were 3 microphones on the stage. Casey and Kira were on one, which they were basically only going to use to call people up from the crowd. And there were 2 other free ones, so they go to me and say, did you do some commentary for the matches? I'm like, fucking what? I mean, I did it. I had no idea what was going on most of the time, but I did it. And that became something else we would do, is we would call people up from the crowd to commentate, which was both a great and terrible thing. At the end of the day, it allows more people to participate in it, even if they aren't like directly playing. We start like calling attendees up to either commentate or play against Casey and Kira. And as they're setting up the commentators, we just hear this loud boom through the microphone. And we're like, what the fuck was that? The tech people are scrambling, trying to figure out what in the hell made that noise. No one really knows. So we're just like, all right. And we just kind of move on. But then we have another round of people go through. The commentators go up to set up on stage. Same thing. Boom. Loud ass noise through the speakers. I can't remember exactly what they said was causing it, but something about the way people walked up onto the stage. They were stepping on something that was making contact with a cable, which somehow made this loud ass noise like ripple through the speakers. So from that point on, they actually stationed like an AV guy by the stage, telling the commentators what not to do as they went to like set up in front of the mics for commentary. So I only did commentary on like the first match, and then the rest of it was just attendees. Time goes on, and usually people will like play as the characters who are deemed quote unquote good characters, or like the ones that get a lot of memes about them. Then there's this one ballsy guy who ends up playing against Casey and Kira. He picks random. And it's clear that he's got like an entourage of friends in this one part of the room that's egging him on. And I'm thinking, okay, If it's random, I know who I want it to be, but it's probably not going to be them. Because it was a character that nobody had picked, and sure enough, Rando comes up, he's playing as Shulk, and I am so happy. And apparently so are his friends too, because they see the Shulk silhouette come up and they go, yeah! So it's him and this other guy playing as Terry Bogard, and they do eventually win the match, and the entourage of friends is just like losing their mind. They're going, Shulk, 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 Shulk. And at the victory screen, the guy who was playing as Terry Bogard just happened to be wearing a hat at the time. And he turns around and tosses it over his head toward the crowd. And then he turns around and goes, did anyone see where my hat went? And another thing about the Smash panel is, Kira is one of those quote-unquote purists who's like, we gotta play on the Omega stages with no items turned on. Casey is like me in that we want Smash to be, sorry, I'm struggling to think of the word. Alright, fun. So eventually, we managed to, depending how you look at it, either convince or browbeat Kira into turning on some of the items and not just doing the, like, one platform stages. The items that were turned on were, I think, Smash Balls and Pokeballs. But that panel goes over pretty well, too. So when that's over, it's time for dinner. Kira has plans to go to this place that's relatively close by. We could easily walk to it. It was a place called Summer Shack. It was a place that sold a bunch of seafood, but they had some non-seafood options as well. But there was something a little screwy with what was going on in the restaurant at the time. Because there's this one person who took our order. She goes, all right, we'll have that right up. She goes back, presumably to drop off the order, and we never see her again. And then we start getting food, but we realize only half of us have what we ordered. Casey wasn't particularly hungry and just got, well, they call it shells and cheese, but it's basically mac and cheese, just with a different kind of pasta with the cheese. And for whatever reason, that was taking a very long time to come out. We got clams sent to the table. We got lobster rolls sent to the table. My fish and chips got sent to the table. Mac and cheese? No, can't be done. But we do eventually get in contact with another person who was working there. We're like, what's going on? We're still waiting for mac and cheese. And they're like, oh shit. They go back and they fix what was going on with the order. The order just vanished into the ether for a little bit, I guess. So the day is pretty much done at this point, and we go back to the room, and Casey brought a PS2, and I brought a few games for it, and we just decided to wind down with a bit of Gran Turismo 3 and 4. And even though I haven't played 7 yet, I have a feeling I should just stick to 3 and 4. So, Sunday comes, and because the convention happens to fall on Easter, they were also going to close the convention a little bit earlier than they otherwise would have. That also meant that it was a little lighter on fans in attendance that day. It wasn't a constant stream of people. There were like some lulls here and there, which was okay. That's kind of like having built-in breaks. But this is the day that I decided to do like a really simple cosplay. I just happened to find this like light blue hoodie, and I already had a red hat, and I figured, fuck it, I could make this Naota from Furikuri cosplay. So I brought that. It did actually get recognized a few times. I was a little surprised, because usually when you cosplay someone who's just wearing like regular ass street clothes, it can be a little tough for people to recognize that, but a surprising number of people caught it. So because it was a bit lighter on fans, we decided, well, Casey decided, because they kind of run their show, that they were going to take a 20-minute break and go see what's in the dealer space, because they haven't really had a chance to do that the entire convention. We're just weaving through the convention space, trying to figure out where the video games. In the process, I find this one place that's selling video game soundtracks. And I'm just kind of glancing through the discs, and I find the soundtrack to Babylon's Fall. I don't know what I expected to find, but I definitely wasn't expecting to find the soundtrack to Babylon's Fall. Much less the soundtrack to Babylon's Fall priced at $110. Although I guess they gotta make up for the lost money somehow. So we do eventually find a game vendor, which when we were initially going through there while they were still setting up, we saw them in passing and we're like, we gotta go back there. Casey's looking around, they see a couple of things that they're interested in, and I'm just kind of like casually looking, not expecting to buy anything, because most of the things that I would want to buy are like way out of my price range. And then I look through the 3DS games, and something sticks out to me. The words Resident Evil. Just because I've played a bunch of the games, I'm generally a fan of the series. And then I read the word after it, which is supposed to be Revelations. It is not. It is Revelaitons. Because there was a run where they misprinted the title of the game on the label. I have Revelations for Wii U. I don't have it for 3DS. That is ultimately how I justified purchasing a copy of this game that I would otherwise get just because haha funny title. If I remember correctly, I think Casey got like a Twisted Metal game on PSP and I think Wipeout 64. So we do get back from the break. There aren't that many people left who are asking for autographs, but there were still a few. And the entire time this is going on, I'm thinking of Unicorn Overlord, because that's a game I'm playing right now. I'm still nowhere near the end. I'm probably going to have thousands of hours in it when all is said and done. Casey voices like one of the custom mercenary voices in that game. We'd gone the entire weekend, and then one of the last people who comes up for autographs says, by the way, I also really liked your voice in Unicorn Overlord. And both Casey and I just like throw our hands in the air. We're like, yeah, someone mentioned it. And the dude, he's a little confused. He's like, did you guys have a bet going on this or something? Like, no, we're just happy that you mentioned Unicorn Overlord. Two people come up to the table. One of them looks kind of familiar. Like, I know I haven't seen the person in person before, but something about their look seems familiar. Then I notice their badge, and I see that they're technically listed as like a panel-based guest, and it says their name is Red Bard. And for those unfamiliar, Red Bard is a YouTube channel which makes videos about anime conventions and anime culture. They come up to the table, and instead of like asking for a print, they walk up to the table and they have this piece of printer paper. It is a printed out screenshot of an old dubbing project that was posted on YouTube ages ago called Casey and Friends.
Get out my way! I'm going to a fiesta!
We were worried that you'd miss the fiesta.
I didn't miss it.
Yo, dog!
Is there cheese? I'm lactose intolerant!
Don't remember. We'll find out, man.
No! It's got cheese!
They present this because they saw it a while ago and they still reference it on a regular basis. And they thought it would be funny because, you know, it's called Casey and Friends. Casey's first name is Casey. And then Casey goes, "Oh yeah, I made this a while ago with some friends." And apparently that blew Red Bard's mind. But because this is something that doesn't come across Casey's table every day, they just absolutely went to town on this screenshot of Casey and Friends. They're like doodling over the face of the person in the screenshot. They're writing all kinds of comments. They eventually sign their name, but they also write like, "I'm sorry you've spent the past 20 years referencing this." And they also take like a quick video of themselves saying a quote from it. Our time for autographs is up. There's this thing Anime Boston was doing for closing ceremonies, where they highly encourage guests to show up for it, but it technically wasn't mandatory. And like some of the guests almost couldn't show up for it because they still had like long lines. Christina V next to us, she was swamped the entire weekend, and even late on Sunday there was a big line of people waiting for her. So she wasn't going to be able to get away from the table anytime soon. But Casey and Kira both go to closing ceremonies, and they handled this a little differently than the initial time. They still have everyone come backstage, and they still have them go on stage. But rather than doing it one at a time, they have all the North American guests go on stage at once, pass around a microphone, say a few things, and that includes Casey and Kira, and it also includes Greg Ayers. Now, the significance of this is that Casey and Greg are friends, and they have been for a while. And in fact, once upon a time, about 10 years ago, Greg Ayers was a guest at Anime Boston, and Casey was like Greg's plus one. Here they are, 10 years later, and now both of them are guests at Anime Boston. Eventually, everyone gets off stage. We're getting kind of hungry, so we grab Shake Shack again. I don't care, the food was okay, and it was accessible. We get Shake Shack, we go back to the room, and we start playing video games. And by video games, I mean Tony Hawk. We started off with Tony Hawk's Underground 2, which I still haven't played much, and am afraid to do a video on at some point in the future, because I'm probably not going to have as many positive things to say about it. But there is a Boston-type level in there, where there's a church, and Casey managed to clip through the wall and get into the church, where there was absolutely nothing. But in trying to move around inside of that space in the church, their character model T-spins, T-poses and spins in a bunch of really unnatural ways. Took out Thug 2, put in Underground 1, and this is the moment where the entire afternoon and evening went completely downhill. We're just messing around in the New Jersey level, like the very first level. It doesn't take us long to find something that neither of us realized was there. So there's this quarter pipe. It goes to the roof of a building, but along the side of it is a set of buildings that functions as like the edge of the map. You can't actually launch yourself over it, but there's an invisible wall that keeps you from flying over it and falling out of the stage. However, I accidentally found that when you like launch off of it and are facing directly at the wall and fly into it, and you start descending, you can actually bounce off of that wall, get additional air, and have time to do more tricks. So that led to us trying to figure out a way to do as many backflips as possible off of this one quarter pipe. And you know, without the bounce trick, you could do 2. It was possible to just barely do 3, but you had to be extremely fast on the inputs and do a fast plant to get extra air. With the bounce trick, I managed to do 4 backflips, and I was much prouder of that than I should have been.
So you gotta hit up, and then just release it as you go up the ramp. Like that, yeah. Oh! Ah! What the fuck? Nice. Oh shit.
So then Casey starts messing around with this, and is kind of in the same general area as where that quarter pipe is, and manages to get the character stuck in midair in like a point where one wall ends and another begins. They realize that they're off their board at this time, so they start hitting jump, and it starts elevating them further and further and further above the stage. And parts of the level start to just phase out completely. They get back on their board and start doing special tricks. The camera starts wobbling all over the place. And I'm thinking, is this like a Pro Skater 1 and 2 situation where you get under the map and you just fall infinitely and do tricks until you get bored? But they do eventually manage to fall, and then they get caught on the edge of a building before they actually land. It looks like the edge of the building like has them by the scruff of the neck. And they hang for a moment, and the moment they try to do like more tricks or move out of it, they start bouncing repeatedly, but not actually landing. So they just start doing more tricks, like fuck it. And eventually, it does like spit them out, and they land, and they get like millions and millions of points for a combo. The most bizarre combo I've ever seen. So that's kind of funny and bizarre in its own right. But then Casey mentions a weird little bit of trivia about Underground 1. There's this move you can do where you're like alternating between a blunt slide and a nose slide. And it is like one of the only tricks in the game where your character model's mouth is open, going like, whoa! And for whatever reason, we decided, that looks kind of goofy. Let's see what it looks like on all of the other characters. Because it looked perfectly normal on the custom skater that you would make for the game. Some of the skaters in the game, their mouth doesn't open at all. And it's not consistent about how it works. Like, there are some characters who would talk in the game, so you knew that their character model was capable of opening their mouth, but they wouldn't do it for the trick. And then there were other characters who didn't say anything and their mouth would open. But when their mouth opened, it also opened the door to a new kind of horror. There are now hundreds, that is not an exaggeration, hundreds of photographs on my phone of every character, well, almost every character in the game, with like weird, deformed, mutated mouths because of this trick. That went on for hours. And both of us were laughing so much that we got like borderline migraine headaches from it. We eventually got away from Underground. Our headaches slowly went away. And we all went to sleep. Monday, we get up, we pick up the hotel room, we say goodbye to Kira because she was catching a flight, whereas Casey was not, because Casey was going to hang out in Connecticut, which is where they're from, and they still have friends and family in the area. I was already planning to drive back to Ohio, and part of my route would take me through Connecticut. So, I just gave them a ride to where they were going, and then dropped them off, and was planning to go back. I realized, though, I scheduled my April Fool's thing to go up as I was making the drive to Connecticut. So in between Boston and where I was going in Connecticut, We stopped in a Walgreens parking lot for the YouTube premiere of the April Fool's video that I put up. I eventually drop off Casey where they're going. We grab a bit of food. We make a detour to Bristol to see ESPN Campus. Spoiler, it is absolutely fucking huge. And then I get back in my car and I drive over to WonRull's place. And I meet up with him, and I meet up with Nightman and a family member of his. And we all go to get some food at this place called Fuji's. I'd already eaten, but I did end up getting some sushi rolls, which were pretty good. And from there we go to GameStop, which I have not set foot in a GameStop in a very, very long time. But while we're there, Nightman decides to just ask the person at the GameStop if they had Unicorn Overlord for PS5 in stock. Because Unicorn Overlord on like pretty much anything but the Switch has been extremely hard to find. But they had one copy. They had one copy because a person pre-ordered it for PS5 and then never picked it up. And the game came out like almost a month ago. So it was well past the holding period, and Nightman just bought it. There's another person who's been looking for Unicorn Overlord for PS5, and that's Casey. I made sure to take a photo of Nightman with the Unicorn Overlord copy and then send it to Casey. Speaking of Unicorn Overlord, WonRull had a special edition of it, which came with a bunch of other stuff, including the Unicorn Overlord card game. These are things again. And it included this comic of Sir Joseph explaining the rules of the card game. So eventually I say my goodbyes and I hit the road. And the road back is pretty okay so far. It's a bit later in the day, so the traffic's not as heavy. So I'm not having any trouble through like Connecticut, the part of New York I drove through. Pennsylvania's going fine, even though it's a little foggy in spots. And then the rain starts. I'm within like an hour, hour and a half of the Pennsylvania-Ohio border, and the rain just starts coming down in buckets. The rain is getting really bad, and I'm still in the part of Pennsylvania where it's foggy, so visibility is like at a premium. There are points where I'm not able to see a car coming until it's maybe 100, 150 feet away. But I'm still managing through, and I hit the Ohio border, and the rain's letting up. So I think, okay, I'm through the worst of it now. I'm on the home stretch. I take a bit of a nap at a rest area, and I'm like an hour, 20 minutes away from home. And I'm like, all right, home stretch, let's do this. It's still raining a bit, but within like 5 minutes of me getting back on the road, it's just raining the hardest that it's been the entire trip. I had the wipers on like max speed, and it's helping sort of. I can see like some light flickering in front of me, and I realize, oh shit, that's my left headlight going out. The rain is coming down so hard that all of the semis on the road just went, well, fuck this, pulled over to the shoulder and waited for the rain to stop rather than try to drive through any of it. Highways are usually designed so that they're crowned, meaning that the elevation on them like goes down as you go from the lanes toward the middle of the highway to the edge of the highway, so that it, like the water runs off. That did not stop water from somehow pooling in certain parts of the highway. But I'm like fighting through this as best I can. I'm tired. I'm angry at the storm because like I'm in that kind of headspace at the time. I get to like 20 minutes away from home. I have to avoid a car accident because this person, like I'm in the basically the fast lane, although it's not moving that fast. There is a person on the shoulder who is perpendicular to the wall, and their bumper is sticking out into the lane I'm driving in. So I have to do some evasive maneuvers to not clip them and possibly cause them to spin into the road. I think, oh god, that was close. But I made it. I'm gonna make it. 10 minutes from home. My road is relatively clear. But I see, like, I'm going southbound, and I can see the northbound side next to me. And I just see a shit ton of sirens. And beyond them, I see a bunch of cars and trucks and semis that are not moving. And I realize, oh god, there's a pileup on the other side of the highway. I really need to get home. By this point, the sun is starting to rise. Because I had been driving all night. I finally get through the door. It's like just after 7 a.m., I think. Tiger Uchimaru was there to greet me and welcome me home. And then they said that they had a couple of things. Part of me is like, can it wait? I just want to go the fuck to sleep. But I'm like, okay, are they good things? And they're like, yes. They take me to my office, and they said that they moved a couple of things around. Like, particularly where my game consoles and my TV were. And there's this thing sitting there with a bow on it. I am so tired, I do not recognize what this is at first. But I rub my eyes a little bit, and I go, that's a PlayStation 5. Do I own a PlayStation 5 now? A certain someone got me a PS5 as like an Easter present. So I found the person, like I knew who was responsible for this. And I angrily thanked them for it. And now I have to find things to play for the PS5. Other than all the shit I already have for PS4. And I was so happy, I just went the fuck to sleep. I woke up around like 12:40-ish. Thankfully, I didn't have work. And I've been slowly recovering ever since. And that was my Anime Boston.